Okay then. Uh, 6 most disturbing pieces of lost media. Look, I didn't want to watch this by myself, even though I'm streaming. That wasn't enough. I needed it in recording just so then I could upload it. I don't know.
Unsolved Mysteries Lost
Welcome to
Episode.
another video, I guess.
On July 9th, 2024, one Reddit user made an extremely unsettling post on the RBI, or the Reddit Bureau of Investigation subreddit, which read, "Help finding a TV episode to possibly solve a murder. I've spent years and hours through Google trying to locate this, and was advised you guys might be able to help. Trying to find what rerun episode of Unsolved Mysteries aired on a specific date/location that I'm convinced had a story of my ex-husband murdering a couple.
Oh shit.
I was at a hotel in Bakersfield, California on August 17, 2000, and at 11 p.m. they had a rerun of Unsolved Mysteries on the TV. I have no idea what station would have played it. I'm watching them talk about a situation where a smooth-talking stranger gets himself invited into their home, etc. I jokingly kept thinking to myself, yeah, I know someone smooth like that. This person ended up murdering the couple. Fast forward to the end and they show a sketch. I literally sat up in the bed. It was my ex. Yes, he would have been capable of that, and I believe he would have been driving through that area around that time, angry that I just left him." The user also mentioned that they had already contacted the show but hadn't received any answers from them.
Easy. Why is everything
And
easy
despite
now?
years of looking online, they haven't found any clues. Now, my first assumption when I came across this post was that it was nothing more than a hoax created by the user. After all, the idea of someone stumbling upon their ex-husband's involvement in a murder during a late-night rerun of a TV show feels almost too cinematic. Maybe they had a flair for dramatics, or maybe they were just a fan of lost media.
Would it be done that fast though? Because usually don't these like cases, like if it's on TV, wouldn't it be like a cold case that's been like gone for like a while though? I don't know.
So they crafted their own dark tale with a personal twist that would leave the readers yearning for an update that would never come. However, the more I looked into the case, the less plausible this theory seemed. For starters, I looked through their posts and comment history on Reddit and didn't find a particular interest in lost media, horror, or anything of that nature. The account was also created back in 2018, so it wasn't created recently to fabricate this bizarre story. More importantly, the details given in the post seem a bit too specific to be something the original poster just made up. I went through old TV schedule guides from around that time, and sure enough, a rerun of Unsolved Mysteries did air on the live channel on the 17th of August 2000 at around 8 p.m. But if the Reddit user is telling the truth, how did an entire episode of such a popular and well-documented TV show just vanish into thin air? Especially since the whole show is now available on YouTube, and yet there's no sign of an episode matching their description.
Really?
The closest case I found was from a 1994 episode about the disappearance of Jonathan Francia. The investigators working on this case were able to create a sketch of the potential suspect, and it was a man with a long face and a cowboy hat. This did match the description the Reddit user gave in a comment about the sketch they saw on TV.
Bro, I don't know what it is, but like during this whole thing that he was talking about, I just felt the urge to randomly just scream during the video. I don't know why, but that shit, like, just an intrusive thought of, like, just scream. Like, cause, like, I'm getting, like, I don't know, I'm getting, like, chills right now or whatever. Probably because the AC's on or whatnot. And I was like, you know what would be funny? If somebody was just watching this randomly and I just randomly just yelled, like a very high-pitched yell. But I can't really yell on purpose, so I can't do it. But that's why I started laughing. That shit was funny to me. I was like, bro, why is this thought popping up in my head so much? Just randomly yell.
However, this is where the similarities ended between the two cases. To make matters even more puzzling, another person claimed to remember something similar in a comment reading, "I have a vague recollection of this episode as well. I'm going to go through the episodes I've watched on Unsolved Mysteries on YouTube and see if I recognize it." Unfortunately, despite rewatching all of the available episodes, they didn't find anything about the mysterious case either. Though, it's entirely possible that Unsolved Mysteries changed parts of their episode after its rerun in August of 2000. As Redditor Rob Frey mentions in their comment, "The reason why it might be so hard to find and why you can't just watch old episodes to find it is the segment may have been changed from what was originally aired. Unsolved Mysteries used to edit segments as new information came forward, especially after a case was officially solved. If they caught the guy who did it, they may have removed a lot of the information from the case that made you think it was your ex. Especially information that was completely speculative or a red herring. As an example, I remember they had a really good segment about a murder in a family who owned a U-Haul, and it went into a lot of the family infighting and drama, and there was at least an implication that a family member was most likely to blame. When they caught the guy and it turned out to be a random breaking and entering, they cut all of the family drama stuff out of the segment and added an update that the case was solved. The only potential flaw in this theory is that if Unsolved Mysteries changed that episode because the case was quote-unquote solved, the Reddit user would have likely learned about their ex getting arrested, but that didn't happen. From what I've seen, the most likely theory is that maybe they saw the sketch on some other crime show and are simply misremembering it as a part of the Unsolved Mysteries episode after so many years. This would explain why no one was able to find the hint, despite scouring every episode of the show from its conception. However, if this turns out to be true, it would also make searching for what they saw on TV that night exponentially more difficult. Unfortunately, unless someone finds concrete evidence, we have no way of confirming or disproving any of these theories. That being said, if this lost media is ever uncovered by people on the internet, it could help authorities solve a decades-old crime and catch the suspect.
I saved $700 with Liberty Mutual.
Not a creepy face I want to see.
Crazy what you can get with those savings.
You sent in a proposal, but your manager has so many questions.
Easily available explosive. During the 2016 Silicon Valley Comic-Con, one of the hosts of Mythbusters, Adam Savage, was doing a panel answering questions from fans of the show. Near the end of the panel, someone asked him about the biggest disaster he's experienced on Mythbusters.
What is the biggest disaster that you've ever had behind the scenes filming Mythbusters?
Now, this fan was likely expecting something tame, like a crew member spilling something, or one of the devices they built breaking before they could film the episode, something of that nature. However, no one could have anticipated the answer Adam gave for this simple question.
Wondering how specific to get. But the biggest disaster we had was Cary Grant and Tori were investigating a easily available material and its supposed explosive properties. What they found out was so explosive that we destroyed the footage and agreed never to say what we learned.
The material they discovered was so explosive and dangerous that they had to report it to DARPA, which is a research and development agency of the United States Department of Defense. Adam also quickly moved on to the next question, likely in an effort to avoid giving any hints about what this dangerous material could be. Following that panel, he refused to utter a single word about the last episode or the material that made the
Yeah, it must be something very common then for it. Because like if it's very like it has to be common. Because if it wasn't something really common that you could get, then it wouldn't really matter. Right? At least I think.
Them destroy the footage. That silence was held until the 20th of November 2023 when he uploaded a Q&A video on his YouTube channel titled, "These Mythbusters stories got scrapped due to danger." The first question in this video was someone asking about footage that was destroyed outside of Adam's control. At first, he gave a predictable answer, explaining how network decisions like cutting scenes to make room for advertisements had led to some lost content. But before moving on to the next question, he brought up the commonly available explosive again. And while he was careful not to drop any hints about what the material could be, he did go into more detail about why they decided to erase the footage from existence.
We were looking at the purported explosive power of a commonly available material. And what we found was...
I'm so dumb, bro. Said commonly available material, and I just skipped over that, and I was like, yeah, it probably is something very easy to get. Stupid ass.
something so energetic when we executed it that we agreed to not talk about what we learned.
It should be like Red Bull or some shit.
Yeah. It was common enough, easy enough to implement, easy enough to execute that we were like, the world will not benefit from this knowledge. This is the reason you never saw a silencer episode from Mythbusters. Is a potato a good silencer? A pillow? A 2-liter bottle of soda? These are all really interesting questions. And silencers are fascinating technologically. But silenced rounds are not a benefit to humanity.
Makes sense.
This makes total sense considering Mythbusters had tens of millions of viewers from around the world. The show built its reputation on demystifying myths and delivering facts, no matter how surprising or dangerous they might be. By withholding the episode, it may seem like they went against their own character. Some might even argue they had a responsibility to release the episode, both for the sake of scientific transparency and to educate the public about potential risks. Educating people about the potential dangers of a common material could have sparked important conversations about safety and regulation, potentially preventing accidents born out of ignorance.
That is true.
But
That
here's
is
the
also
other
true.
side that's hard
But
to
nah.
ignore. Mythbusters wasn't just a science show, it was also entertainment. Publishing a step by
But they also reported it to the right people, though, I guess.
step guide on how to weaponize an easily available material would have been, at best, irresponsible and, at worst, catastrophic. The world isn't short on people who might misuse such information, and the stakes were simply too high to ignore. So, the team's decision to shelve the episode was the responsible thing to do. That said, I did some digging online, and speculation about what this mysterious explosive could be is all over the place. Some claim that it's simply flour. For those who don't know, non-compacted flour is extremely flammable and can easily create a sizable explosion upon combustion. Another chemical that came up in multiple theories was tannerite. It's a binary explosive that is commonly used for long-range weapons practice. It's helpful for marking targets since it detonates visibly on impact. More importantly, it's widely available online. Someone can easily buy tannerite online for relatively cheap without any permit or verification. However, here's the problem with both of these theories. Neither material creates an explosive dangerous enough to justify the drastic steps the Mythbusters team took. For instance, while a tannerite explosion is certainly impressive, it's not nearly dangerous enough to warrant such a drastic response from the Mythbusters team. While researching the topic, I came across a chemical known as triacetone triperoxide, which perfectly fits with what we know about the mystery
tell
chemical.
everybody I'm dead.
For starters, both of the materials required to make triacetone triperoxide are found in most homes. Acetone, which is used as paint thinner and nail polish remover, and peroxide, which is commonly used as a bleaching agent for white laundry. More importantly, even tiny amounts of triacetone triperoxide can do unimaginable damage. Ultimately, unless someone
The crew that worked on the episodes about posting it, they're saying it was along the lines of the material itself doesn't pose a threat, at least not the way people would counter it. You would have to go out of your way to make it explosive, but the process is so easy and potential for damage and destruction is so high that it would be irresponsible for the nobody else has discovered, but it definitely isn't. Okay, so what is it? Was that easy? Someone could come up with the idea by now. It was probably dangerous, but I doubt it was that dangerous. There's no way that Mythbusters wants the responsibility for outlining the steps and making it accessible to normal. Gotta be TATP. Very easy to make. Portobello mushrooms. I wonder if it's chlorine. Nah, it's Red Bull.
Someone somewhere has a secret copy of that episode and releases it on the internet, we'll never know for sure. And given how Adam described the danger of this material, it's just one of those rare cases where it's honestly better for the video to remain lost media.
When you get car insurance, you get a price based on all these drivers.
Jay Leno Blade Incident. On April 14th, 2022, an anonymous user on 4chan's TV board mentioned a disturbing incident they remembered from an old episode of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. They stated, "One time Jay Leno had a magician on his show and he was doing some sort of cut the lady in half trick. He starts to cut and the lady starts yelling for him to stop like she was actually getting cut or about to get cut, and they start helping her out. I have never seen or heard anything since and never been able to find the clip." The episode in question aired on the 21st of June 2001, and as the story goes, one of the guests on that episode was Arsenio Hall, who was going to perform a classic magic trick of cutting a person in half. However, while he was performing the trick, something went horribly wrong. He accidentally stabbed the woman who was volunteering for the trick. A notable thing about this episode was that Leno wanted to show solidarity with the California power outages. So he hosted his show in a set that was only illuminated by scattered candles and handheld flashlights given to the audience. Maybe the lack of visibility caused Arsenio to make a mistake and harm the woman. Unfortunately, a vast majority of old Tonight Show episodes barely exist in archives and therefore are considered lost media. The June 21st episode is among those lost to time. So there's no way for me to directly verify this incident, but I did find enough clues to piece together what might have happened, and there are 3 distinct possibilities. First is that such an incident never actually happened and the 4chan poster was making it all up.
How does this work though?
However, this possibility doesn't hold up because I found old forum posts from 2001 where people were actively discussing the incident online after watching it. Like this person named Dan, whose post gives more details about what exactly went down. Did anyone else watch The Tonight Show with Jay Leno Monday night? It was a repeat, the one where they turned out all the lights in the studio and had a blackout. Anyways, so Arsenio Hall was the guest, and he was going to do a magic trick where he was going to cut a woman in half. So the woman is lying in the box, and he's trying to shove the blade through, and all of a sudden the woman starts screaming and yelling, "It cut me," and like immediately they cut to a commercial. I was like, what? It has to be a joke. So then when they came back from commercial, Jay seemed flustered, and they didn't mention anything else about the trick for the rest of the night. Did anyone else see this? Does anyone know anything about what happened with this woman? It was so freaky. I also found someone on Reddit who also remembers the incident and mentioned it in the comments of a post discussing the incident, stating, "Holy shit, I thought I dreamed that episode. I've been wondering what happened to that lady for 20 years. So a woman did get stabbed on the Jay Leno show, or at least that's what it looked like to the audience. Which brings us to the second possibility. The woman did get hurt and the incident was later covered up by the network to avoid backlash from the public. However, as much as some people would like to believe this is nothing more than a conspiracy theory. Because, as it turns out, the Jay Leno show is not live, it's taped ahead of time. So if they wanted to cover it up, they would have edited that whole thing out, long before the episode ever saw the light of day. Even knowing this, some claim that the showrunners simply forgot to edit this section out and only realized their mistake when it was too late, which is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
think of it this way, Jay Leno's show was getting upwards of 7 million viewers in 2001.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
So even if the network tried to bury the whole thing later, why didn't any of these millions of viewers cause any backlash? From what I've seen, the most plausible theory is that the incident did happen, but it was all part of a skit. And the people who thought it was somehow real were simply not paying enough attention or just didn't realize the dry humor of the scene. This would explain why there was no uproar from the public. And as for the episode becoming lost media, that wasn't a deliberate cover-up, but just a side effect of the pre-YouTube era when preserving TV episodes wasn't a priority. But who knows, if the speculation gains enough momentum, Jay Leno, Arsenio Hall, or someone else from the show's production team might come forward with the truth. Until then, all we have are educated guesses to piece together the mystery. Sharon Davis's Unsolved Mysteries episode. Sharon Eugene Davis was a 51-year-old school teacher living in Dallas, Texas. She lived with her 2 children, Autumn and Ronnie, and their husband of 21 years, Ron Davis, who she married back in 1980. Unfortunately, her relationship with Ron wasn't ideal. Just 5 years after their marriage in 1985, Sharon filed for divorce while describing her husband as controlling and ill-tempered. She withdrew cash from their mutual account and was planning to move to LA with her 2 children. However, soon after filing for divorce, she mysteriously changed her mind and returned to...
I was like, bro, I want to go get some food, but I'm probably not walking out to the living room. That shit's all dark and shit because nobody else is here. Like, I should have got food before I started it. It's not even that scary. It's just the fact that I'm completely by myself. I'm gonna swing at a ghost when I go out there.
Living with Ron. Fast forward to June 11, 2001, Sharon once again found the courage to file for divorce. And this time she was prepared to go through with the decision at any cost. She was planning to move out of her house in the 1900 block of Elderleaf Drive, all while her attorney was trying to obtain a temporary restraining order against Ron, her husband. However, just as everything seemed to be falling into place, tragedy struck. On June 13, 2001, at around 7 a.m., Sharon dropped their daughter at Rapid Transit Park and Ride Station, 2 miles from their home, and went on her way. She was scheduled to attend a training session at Stemmons Elementary, but she never arrived. Even after her children asked their father to report their mother missing on the evening of June 13, 2001, he refused to contact the authorities until a day later, starting a citywide search for Sharon. And after 4 days of searching, investigators finally found her car abandoned in a parking lot near the Southwest Mall in Oak Cliff. The car had a broken window and was also wiped clean of fingerprints. And while all of this was highly suspicious, the lack of evidence meant that Sharon's disappearance was filed as a missing person case. Ron and her 2 children were called in for interviews multiple times, but the investigators weren't able to find any leads from either of them. Sharon's mysterious disappearance 2 days after her filing for divorce also made Ron the prime suspect in many people's eyes. However, the complete lack of evidence prevented authorities from treating him as the potential perpetrator. When asked about it, this is what the lead officer had to say. "We've had a lot of people ask us if he, Ron Davis, is a suspect. This is a missing person case. There are no suspects at this time. We don't have any criminal evidence, although we fear foul play has occurred. Right now, Mr. Davis is a witness, an uncooperative witness." And after months without any leads, Sharon's case caught the attention of the producer of Unsolved Mysteries, who wanted to air an episode on her case. They produced the segment in mid to late 2001, and it was scheduled for broadcast sometime in spring of 2002. The last thing they needed was an interview from Ron. However, when the producers approached him, he denied the request and was quite stern about it.
Not surprising.
But when they wanted to air the segment without Ron's interview, he objected again and sent an accusatory letter to the producers telling them not to air the segment on Sharon. And that's where the lost media aspect of this story comes into play. The showrunners complied with Ron's request/threat and scraped the whole thing. And as far as I'm aware, the footage has never seen the light of day. It's entirely possible that a witness could have come forward with critical information after seeing Sharon's story on TV. However, Ron's refusal closed the door on any potential leads that could have changed the course of the investigation. This obviously put a lot more attention on Ron. He was even given nicknames like the most guilty non-guilty man. But it's been 22 years without any updates to Sharon's case.
Ads up. So we got rid of them. Why are you showing me an ad? Shut up.
Game in the Sand. Game in the Sand is the name of a shocking short film by the German director Werner Herzog. If you've ever heard of him, you'll know he's famous for pushing boundaries, and not always in a good way. His sets are very well known for being chaotic, and there have even been injuries and deaths during his productions. And apparently he's been this way since the very beginning. You see, Game in the Sand was the second film he ever created back in 1964. However, after completing the film, Werner was so horrified by the footage that he decided to never release it to the public. The only thing we know about the short movie is that it featured 2 children, a rooster, and a cardboard box. It was also filmed in a sandy area, hence the name, and according to Werner, things, quote, got out of hand during shooting. The premise of the movie is also a complete mystery. The only thing Werner has talked about is a scene where the rooster was buried in sand up to its neck. Everything else we know about the film comes from speculation, and given Werner's reputation, people online have come up with some pretty wild theories over the years. Some think the rooster suffocated after being buried, forcing the children to watch it slowly die. Others suggest the kids might have killed the rooster in a brutal way, either on their own or under Werner's instructions. This could explain why it was buried in the first place. Some have also speculated the opposite. Maybe the rooster injured the children with his sharp beak or claws, and Werner captured that on film. The problem with these theories, however, is that none of this comes even close to the stuff that's been released under Werner's other productions, like deaths being shown. What could have gone so wrong during the filming of Game in the Sand that was worse than this? Of course, there's the possibility that Game in the Sand isn't real at all, just something Werner made up to add an air of mystery or create hype for his future projects. Unfortunately, we'll probably never know the truth. The identities of the children involved were never made public, and the film's composer, Uwe Brandner, someone who might have been able to shed some light on what really happened, passed away in 2018. So, even if the short film is real, I highly doubt Werner would have a change of heart 60 years later and release it to the public. The Skyway Man. Ormer Locklear was an American daredevil stunt pilot who became popular in the early 20th century after doing the craziest plane stunt of his time. After footage of his stunt went viral across the country, Ormer was hired for a role in a pseudo-documentary film about stunt flights called The Skyway Man in April of 1920. Put simply, the film was like a collection of the craziest stunts Ormer could successfully pull off in a plane. Filming for the movie began on June 11, 1920 in the LA and San Francisco area. However, the stunts featured in the film were quite tough, including a church steeple being toppled by Locklear's aircraft and an aircraft-to-train transfer, both of which nearly ended in disaster. But despite the many close calls, Ormer and the other stunt pilots remained unharmed. It was soon time to record the last stunt of the film, which was relatively safe compared to what Ormer had done before. It was going to be a simple spin move that was filmed during the day with special camera filters to make it look like the whole thing was performed at night. However, when Ormer learned that the studio wasn't going to extend his contract beyond one film, he demanded to perform the stunt at night, likely as a desperate attempt to impress the producers.
No.
Unfortunately, this is where his luck ran out. On the 2nd of August 1920, Ormer and his longtime flying partner Milton Elliott took flight at night. To make the plane visible to the camera in the dark, the production crew illuminated it with massive arc lights.
Yeah, blinded
However,
driver.
these lights were a bit too bright, so the crew was going to turn them off after the stunts just so Ormer wouldn't be blinded and he could land safely. Maybe it was negligence or simply bad luck, but the crew forgot to turn off the lights. And to everyone's horror, the plane crashed into the ground, killing both Ormer and Milton on impact. However, unlike today, where such an accident would shut down even the biggest film productions, at the time, Ormer's death became the selling point of the film. People flocked to the theater to see the breathtaking stunts, and more importantly, the uncut death footage of the lead stuntman. Unfortunately, the film has since been lost to time. We do have some evidence which proves that it was real, like a memorial for Ormer and Milton in the November 1920 issue of Screenland magazine. I also found a short review for the film from the same magazine issue which reads, Ormer Locklear's Last Picture, directed by James Hogan. Louise Lovely, now a Fox star, furnishes delightful support. Full of thrills and mid-air stunts, the best picture we've had. The Fox company is giving 10% of the profits of this picture to the families of Locklear and Elliott, who are killed while filming the final scene. As for the film itself, it's become lost media in the truest sense of the word. Over the last century, there have been multiple attempts to locate a copy. All have been unsuccessful.
Good video. Am I going to step out into the living room anytime soon? Nope. Am I going to do it right after this? Probably. But yeah. No pointless intro, goofy, scary music, or annoying sound effects. My go-to horror content. Edit. Yes, I am aware there is background music. However, it isn't overpowering or one of those cliche pieces that you hear on other channels where they seem to rotate the same 3 or 4 instruments every story. I remember even I don't know, in the 90s, the shows with each other's. I don't know what he's trying to say right here. It was a scared woman is about to pretend to be cut in half, but then exclaims she's been cut. But if you've been cut in half, you would be. So it looks like it's gone wrong. Found a car with a broken window and he wiped up fingerprints and he still treated it as missing person case. The hell is they found 0 evidence leading to anybody, so that's what happens. Average cop behavior, to be honest. How many true crime cases do you see where a cop to continue? I mean, no. Like, even if it all leads to one person, but there's no evidence anywhere, you can't arrest them. That's how the law works. You gotta find one thing. Like, out of all the shows I've ever watched, all the law shows, all the cop shows that I've watched when my internet goes out, and I'm not streaming, right? Follow me on Twitch. I'm dead. They're always like, find me something that links them to the scene, right? He said they didn't find not one evidence and the car was scrubbed. Like, you can't arrest them when there's nothing. You could have put stuff out and try to see if people would like comment or like reach out to the police, but nobody reached out. There was no evidence. So you can't arrest somebody for something you can't prove that they did. Yeah. Like, subscribe. See you guys later. Hope you have a good day or night, and bye.